Welcome to episode 2 of Perspectives with the Savage Gentleman. I'm going to start off the show real quick with a question. Do you live an intentional life? Do you know what living intentionally means? I didn't know. I lived my life in a way that was very carefree, very day by day, no direction whatsoever, with no intentionality in my life. And I floated. I floated through life with with no goals, with no vision. And so it wasn't until later on in my later years that I started to read up on, how to live better. And living intentionally is crucial. So I want to do a show about it. So me and William, my buddy, he goes with me everywhere. We're going to talk to you about intentionality. So buckle up. I hope you enjoy, and let's get into it a little bit. I fly every week across the country for my job. So one of the crazy things that I observe through being in an airport is watching people. And I watch all kinds of people from your businessmen to your family travelers to um, people going on ski vacations or, whatever. And you get a real sense of people from being in an airport. It is amazing to me how people have gone into airports, um, in their pajamas and like have not showered with no hygiene, which kind of got me thinking about why I wanted to start this show in the first place with intentional living to do this episode. Because uh, sitting next to somebody on a plane who hasn't showered, hasn't done their laundry, or is sitting there in their pajamas, shedding dandruff on you is a very uncomfortable and horrible thing to deal with. And I get thinking about how people have kind of lost a sense of purpose in their lives. Like literally going to the airport and flying used to be a thing where people really, really would get dressed up and they'd put their Sunday best on. And it was a thing where you would get on a plane, you never saw people walking around looking like complete slobs or unshowered or smelling bad with the fear of sitting there next to somebody for 4 or 5 hours. They have to smell them. And I run into it a lot, and it's very sad that we've turned into a society now where people don't live intentionally. They don't wake up and say, okay, I'm going to get on a plane today. I'm going to make sure I have my clothes laundered. I'm going to take a shower. I'm going to brush my teeth, and I'm going to be pleasing to the person that's sitting next to me. That doesn't happen anymore. Uh, it's amazing to me how even people who you would think had a pretty decent life don't prepare themselves to do a simple thing like get on an airplane. It blows me away. So in my travels and as I travel a lot, I sit and observe people all the time, whether I'm in the airport or whether I'm, sitting at a cafe eating or whatever. I observe and I try to figure out what makes people tick. And I think the biggest thing that I've come up with lately is people have no direction. They've lost that sense of personal pride that comes with living intentionally. When I get up in the morning, before I go down to have breakfast at the hotel, or before I prepare to leave the hotel, I make sure I'm showered. I make sure I'm brushing my teeth, that I've combed my hair, and that I am putting my best face forward for the public and for public consumption because we are judged by our neighbors and by our peers by how we present ourselves publicly. So it's it's strange to me how many people don't have the sensibilities of just coming down and being presentable, um, and they don't care what their public perception or public persona is. So it got me thinking, okay, I want to do this show on intentional living. So there are positive intentional ways to live intentionally, and there are negative ways to live intentionally. You can live very positive. Everything you do is thought out uh, in positive manner, but you can also do negative intentional living, and which would mean in my earlier years, I would do things intentionally knowing that there's going to be negative consequences if I get caught, or even if I don't get caught, the impact on my life is going to be negative. If I decide to go out and write a check for something that I can't afford, and then I have no money for 2 weeks waiting for my next paycheck, that's an intentional action that I took only to suffer the consequences later. And I had to wait 2 more weeks for another paycheck in order to get other things that I needed because I intentionally went out and did something like that. And people do that all the time now, where um, they make negative intentional choices, and then they lament, why is my life like this? Why do I live paycheck to paycheck? And why do I have these financial burdens and hardship? Well, that stereo in your car that costs $500 might be an example of that. I mean, there's things you can point to and say, you could have done things a little bit different. And I've lived that life. I've done that. It's like, man, I want that part for my bike. I'm going to get it regardless. And boom, next thing I got it. But I mean, wrong. So negative intentional living comes with consequences, just as positive intentional living comes with consequences. When you make positive choices intentionally, you get the positive consequences. I'm going to hold off on this purchase, or I'm going to do this thing a certain way to receive a positive outcome. And I think that's one of the things that we don't, as a society, really look into anymore because we're so used to living in this fast-paced world where we don't um, think of the consequences uh, of our choices. So for me, I live intentionally uh, the best I can on a daily basis, making choices that I believe are going to be a net benefit to me, my kids, my family, and my grandkids. It's not always easy. There are sometimes I don't want to live the way I have to in order to make these choices. I work 3 jobs. Uh, I work 2 full-time jobs and this podcast, which I consider a job at this point, which is not something that is not time consuming. It takes time to do it and put together and do editing and figure out how I'm going to put forth a show and doing multiple takes, by the way. And so I work 3 jobs intentionally because I know that that's what's going to get me forward in life. Not everybody has to work 3 jobs. When I went to school and I was a youngin', I didn't pay attention. I didn't think at 16, 17, and 18 that my education was going to be that important. I had trouble in my studies. I had trouble with math. I had trouble with spelling. I still can't spell. I'm 55 years old. I can't spell to save my life. Uh, but because I kind of didn't pay attention to my education when I was younger, it meant that I couldn't be a doctor, or I couldn't be a lawyer, or I couldn't do things that, other people who really applied themselves at a younger age were able to get. So, in order for me to have the lifestyle that I live, I have to work the hours that I do. And I do it because I want freedom for my family. My wife broke her hip 3 years or 5 years ago and her femur in a horrible accident. And she was a nurse. So in order for me to allow her to not be on her feet all the time from that accident, and because of the pain and suffering that she feels, I have to intentionally get up and work one job. I work, I fly across the country and I work for, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And then I come back and then I work 3 or 4 days at my other job where I work 60 or 80 hours a week. I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back. I'm saying that my intentions when I was young was to mess around. Uh, and so therefore, in later in life, uh, in order for me to hustle, make it, have a lifestyle that I want, I have to work extra hard. And I'm willing to do it, and I will do it until I don't have to do it anymore. But I intentionally work as hard as I can. I do everything I need to provide for my family. There are so many people who just want to work one job, come home, play Xbox all day, or not work at all and be on their Xbox and do this and that. And then they expect to have an exceptional life. You cannot have an exceptional life without living intentionally. You have to put in the work. You have to uh, live above where everybody else is living in your peer group. If your peers are down here wanting to play Twitch and Xbox all night long, I'm saying you tell them, no, I gotta go work because I just took a second job, whether it's in a convenience store or whether it's, washing dishes in a restaurant or whether it's, doing janitorial work or accounting work for a firm that's, needing some accounting work done. If you're good at math, I mean, there's literally things you can do that will benefit you exponentially by living a way that is uh, intentional. And so I think that there are too many people who have gotten used to floating. I've observed it. It seems to be pervasive where people don't want to go back to work after COVID, after um, their life experiences have taught them that they can't get ahead, that they'll never be able to get ahead. So I'm just going to live with the status quo. And I don't believe that's the case. You don't have to do that. I refuse to live the status quo, and I know many people who also refuse to live, by a society that tells them they can only go this high when they can go this high, and they can break through that glass ceiling and be the best person they can be. So you have to be laser focused. You have to be driven. You have to be uh, a person who is willing to feel pain to make a difference. Uh, to someone who will, how do I say it? Endure long hours, uh, time away from family, time away from kids, time away from their video games or their ball games, or even for me, riding my motorcycle, which is one of the things that just absolutely um, brings me the most joy ever is riding my motorcycle. And so, you know, I make those sacrifices until I don't have to make those sacrifices anymore. I'm getting to a place where I won't have to make those sacrifices all the time because I intentionally choose to live better. Uh, we live in unprecedented times where you can get a PhD online. Used to be you had to go sit in university and all this and that, and you can, you know, spend all these hundreds of thousands of dollars. We live in a time right now where we've got phones and computers at our fingertips where you have a vast network of knowledge and people and advice that you can take and do whatever you will with it. Like if I have a remote that I can't program because I'm not technically adept, I can go on YouTube, type in that remote and say, okay, I got a Samsung, this, that, blah. And within 5 minutes, I know how to operate that remote to operate my smart TV because there's somebody smarter than me that has put a video out there. So, you know, you have a wealth of knowledge for free that has been given to us via the internet. Like the world can be an insane place, but it's also a place now where we live in such an enlightened era where we can take all of the good from the internet we want. Um, and for me, uh, I downloaded Audible years ago, and I listen to audiobooks, 3, 4 books a week in my travels. On a plane, I'll put an audiobook on. Sometimes I put an entertainment book, a fiction novel that I enjoy reading because I want uh, the pleasure of listening to something that will just let me kind of escape into a different world. However, I also listen to self-help books. I listen to how-to books. I listen to um, uh, how the brain works books. I listen to books of people who are successful, generals, philosophers, uh, all of the greatest minds in the world. You've got access to for $15 a month. And if you can't afford $15 a month, then go out and sell lemonade on the street so you can make these $15 a month auto purchases. I mean, you can really do anything you want in this world if you set your mind to it, because you've got all the tools and the resources. You just have to be able to put them into place, make them work for you. And that's an intentional choice. I'm going to spend $15 a month. I'm going to download an Audible book a month, and I'm going to listen to Nietzsche, or I'm going to listen to Socrates, or I'm going to read about some generals or some presidents or you know somebody who like Gandhi. She's somebody who knows better than me or went before me who can give me some life tools to really make a difference in the world. So you can live intentionally in this world and you can make it, but you have to make the choice to do it. So I think we can do better as a society by making better choices. When you're in public, kind of going back to my airplane thing, try to try to come forward as at least somebody who cares, somebody who actually wants to put their best face forward, whether you're feeling good or bad or ugly that day. Put a clean pair of pants on and take a shower and put some deodorant on before you get on a plane and sit next to somebody. Before you go to a job interview, that's another thing that really bugs is I've watched people doing interviews. They go to an interview in a sweatpants and then they wonder why they didn't get the job. Or people who go to a courthouse to fight a traffic ticket in sweats and pajamas and then they wonder why the judge threw the book at them and gave them the max fine. If I'm going to court, I'm going to put a suit and tie on, or the very minimum authority, and some nice shoes. I'm gonna present myself before the courts in a fashion that is respectable to the court, or I'm going to present myself to a job interview that is respectable to the people that I want to be employed by, and that's an intentional choice for me to get up, get dressed, get put the proper attire on. If I'm going for a business job, I'm going to put a suit and tie on. If I'm going for a construction job, I'm going to put steel-toed boots on and some clean pants and a nice uh, button-down shirt. But I'm going to go looking like someone who cares about myself enough to get that position that I'm seeking. So anyway, enough about that. I believe that living intentionally is the only way to go. I believe that living intentionally is crucial, especially in this time where we are uh, putting big distance between people. You've got people who are never going to try to improve themselves because they've gotten themselves in a mindset that this is all I can do and this is all I'm going to have. And then you got the people who are like me who uh, didn't really get educated, but have decided to make something of themselves. So I will do whatever it takes, whether it's through study or whether it's through my personal endeavors or whether it's through just um, living a life that is worthy of what I'm seeking to do. And then there are people who have been successful that just want to continue their success through the through their careers and break through and be the very, very best and become executives and movers and shakers of the world. So here we are. Uh, I'm going to end this show with a real quick, just be the best you can be. Don't let the world kick you down. Get up, have some purpose, do some push-ups, eat better, make better choices in your health, and I promise you, your life will improve. Mine sure did. Uh, when I decided to start living a different way, when I started to live in a way that I felt was moving me laterally, uh, I never looked back, and I never will. I will not go backwards. So live intentionally, be amazing, be a good person, be good to your neighbors, and for heaven's sake, take a shower before you get on an airplane. And I hope to see you again soon. Thanks for watching. And we got a really cool show coming up. I'm going to be doing a uh, um, sit down with a very close and personal friend that is a mentor to me, who him and I have gone through uh, some amazing experiences from motorcycle club. Uh, he was the president of my club, and we have gone through some real transforming life experiences. It's going to be great. I encourage you to tune in as soon as I have that show up. I'll let you know, and we're putting that out. And this man is he's an inspiration. He's a mentor, and we've really got some stories to tell. So thank you for watching. I hope you live intentionally. I hope you raise the bar, live a life that you are worthy of, and we'll see you on the next show. Thank you.